been one of the coordinators, and it is my great pleasure to go ahead and just turn things right over to this amazing panel of exceptionally talented poets. One thing that we do to save time is you can read all about them on our website. So schedule, biographies, everything is on there. We want to get straight into these awesome poems. We have C. Salazar, we have Maggie Graber, Ginsburg, so thank you guys so much for coming. Do you have any idea who's going to kick things off? It is yours, so thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. I'm Melissa Ginsburg. I'm just going to read the description of the panel real quick, and then I'm going to introduce our first reader, Ellie. So, we're 4 Mississippi poets, and we wrote this little thing on screen. These writers navigate issues of queerness, gender, power, and the divine. Because where we're from shapes how we speak, there's an interdependent relationship between voice and landscape. These works dwell in landscapes, natural and technological, shaped by history, myth, ecology, and pop culture. They are interested in psychology, violence, and trauma, operating at the intersection of the monstrous and the human. Enlivened by lush imagery, sonic play, humor, and formal innovation, these poems present angels and video game glitches, dead gods, and endangered wild spaces as sites of possibility, longing, and transformation. So our first reader is the very talented Ellie Black. Ellie is a PhD student in creative writing at the University of Mississippi, where she also receives her MFA. Her poetry can be found in or is forthcoming from Poet Lore, Afternoon Visitor, Mississippi Review, Poetry Online, The Offing, Black Warrior Review, Diagram, Best New Poets, and elsewhere. Her prose can be found in or is forthcoming from Hayden'sbury Review, the Georgia Review, Pleaides, Fandom Spotlite, and the Adroit Journal. So please welcome Ellie Black. That's me. All right, so I'm going to read some poems for you guys. These are all from my debut poetry collection, Visitation, which I'm currently shopping around on the circuit, so if anybody wants it, you can have it. This poem is called Invasive Species. Though I claim to eschew violence, I know hunting has its benefits, like population control of invasive species, necessity of food using the whole animal. The only gun I know is in my father's drawer back home, only in case of emergencies. We're all very careful, not touching it, as it glistens matte against papers that explain its origins. I used to lie on the little blue couch in my first apartment and weep. My body had been used unforgivably by a boy I loved, and socially I wasn't faring much better. I laid on that couch for days on end and was pawed and concerned by a cat that wasn't even mine. Nothing was mine. I kept thinking about the butcher knife in the kitchen, my roommates. I had never owned a big, nice knife before, and I still didn't. It was all I could think about. My whole life, I feared blades, refused to touch them, held knives at arm's length when emptying my mother's dishwasher. Heart fluttering, I held them far from my wrists. I'd be remiss not to mention the ex, the boy in question, who owned a thrifted block of knives which he kept in the top of his dorm room closet, which, ostensibly, he had purchased for a Halloween costume. One day, he knocked it down from the shelf right on top of me. He looked back with empty eyes, said, "Why are you crying? It was an accident. Why are the hands attached to the wrists at all? It hinges on you understanding I wasn't going to touch this knife unless it asked me to." So I stood in the kitchen, and I held the knife in front of me with my ghostly hands. Of course, I didn't plunge it into my stomach like I wanted. I wanted someone to catch me, but no one was home. I put the knife away. How stupid. Whatever hunted me caught me just then. It said, "It's your turn. You can kill whatever you want." Should we set a rule? Like, are we clapping after every poem or just after each set? Okay, we'll clap after each set. Sometimes you gotta set a is called Stand Up Act, Am I Being Called to Ministry? My grandfather was a Baptist preacher in Arkansas, so I think a lot about that. What kind of minister is a poet? Not a very good one. Not a great comedian either. What kind of minister doesn't believe in God? Punchline. We're still working on that one. If you want to believe in God, then believe. Nothing's stopping you. If you're meant for ministry, says God, you'll know. I say, wait a second, where did you come from? I turn around and the room is empty. Big surprise. God has provided the call with a powerful voice, says Google. People will listen despite themselves. What kind of God wants a poet? Mostly God prefers comedians. A poet, a minister, a comedian walk into a bar. I get it, you say, not having gotten it. If you've come to laugh, then laugh. You don't have to wait for anything funny. This next one is called Hustle, Death Drive. It's after Daddy by Sylvia Plath, so you may recognize words as images. And for those of you who might not be familiar, a hustle is a poetic form in which every other line ends with the same word throughout the poem. And in the last stanza, the poet's name will appear. Hustle, Death Drive. If I stepped with the boot that has stepped on me, if I bathed in the blood that was spilled on me, if I hardened the heart that was given me, I have kept on the path that was laid for me. I have crept in the depths of the core of me and have come to know what resides in me, the guts of me and the gore of me, the rot of me and the sore of me. I tongue at the hole in the mouth of me, remember the sliver that once was me, the pitiful sight of a wretch like me. I protected me from the wreck of me. Now I swallow the smoke that has swallowed me and cough up the lung that's rejected me. I reach in the mirror and throttle me, remind her it's all about me, me, me. I spit in the face of the trace of me, and I finally know what delivers me, the black, black heart of a bitch like me. Turn the page over here. This next one is called Judgment US 49. Some of you may be familiar with US 49 as the location of the story about blues singer Robert Johnson and supposedly where he sold his soul to the devil. Judgment US 49. No sympathy for the soul, for the devil you sell it to. No sympathy for birds who fly low to the ground. No sympathy for the moon, monument company, or the gravestones out front on the unbroken land. No sympathy for flowers, whether rotted or rooted. No sympathy for road signs, no turning with care. No sympathy for the intersection of Lula and Moon Lake. No sympathy for the outdoor dogs or the molten corpse of the squirrel they killed or any of its maggots. No sympathy for the old house. No sympathy for the new house. No sympathy for the cars that hit the low-flying birds. No sympathy for anything smaller or larger than me. No sympathy for me, for past me or future me. No sympathy for God. God's the same size as me. There's no room for God in me. I'm all full up. No vacancy. This poem is called Let Me Be the Angel. You can be the other thing. What do we call that? Human, I think. Let me understand you with my X-ray vision. Archaeologically, I'll dig you, and then you can uncover me, peeling layer after layer, finding only light waves. I'd like to be fully available. You can know whatever you want, barring that which is unknowable. If you don't let me be the angel, I'll still be the angel, I just won't be happy about it. I will make it good for you. I will crush what ails you. The world is not long for itself either way, so don't worry. When I'm the angel, you'll have my respect. I will be the all-consuming. You can have whatever's left. And this is going to be my last poem. It's about an encounter with an angel. It's called Be Not Afraid. An angel came into my room all like, be not afraid. The angel was in flickering black and white, or in technicolor depending on the angle. The angel was a giant rabbit, 6'3", or actually the angel was just some guy in a coat. The angel was like looking in a mirror, but only out of the corner of your eye at night. The angel said, we have a lot in common. The angel said, I can sense the intensity of your longing, your love, the weight of your devotion, not to God, but humanity. Doesn't it suck? I said, sure. He said, look, we have the same eyes. And so we did, numerous and blue. The angel said, I'm here for you. I said, okay, but as in I'm your friend, or as in I'm here to exhort you to abide by the will of God? And we both laughed. I said, fine. What's God's will for me then? He said, through 1,000 mouths I could not see. You must be very careful, and you must be kind. You must be afraid. You must never be afraid. You must be the conduit through which the world sees itself, a mirror held infinitely up to itself. Everyone will love you. No one will love you. Learn to accept this. You must be decorative. You must be substantial. You must be hypothetical. You must be foolproof. You must be fooled. You must be sorry. You must be sorry. You will engage in minor forms of prophecy, and it will not turn out well for you. Learn to accept this. You will be arraigned on charges of desire. You are not permitted want. Want is all you will have. You must forgive. You must never be forgiven. You must not do what God has willed for you. Everything you touch will be changed and forgive you. You must destroy yourself. You must allow yourself to be destroyed. It is for the good of mankind that you do this. And I said, where will you be? Will you stay with me? I said, hello. Thank you. And I'm going to reintroduce Melissa, and she is going to read some wonderful poems for you all. Melissa Ginsburg is the author of 2 poetry collections, most recently Doll Apollo, which won the 2023 Poetry Award from the Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters, and 2 novels, including The House Uptown, which is set here in New Orleans. Her poems have appeared in The New Yorker, Image, Guernica, Kenyon Review, Vince, Southwest Review, and other magazines. Originally from Houston, Texas, Melissa studied poetry at the Iowa Writers Workshop. She is Associate Professor of Creative Writing and Literature at the University of Mississippi, where she was my thesis advisor. And she serves as Associate Editor of Tupelo Quarterly. She lives in Oxford, Mississippi. Everybody welcome Melissa Ginsburg. Thanks. So I'm going to read some poems from my book, Doll Apollo. These are all more or less landscape poems. Some of them are from the point of view of paper dolls. Some of them are persona poems from the point of view of the Apollo spaceship. So this first one is called In an Endless Chevron Landscape, a cutout doll and a stick figure meet but cannot touch. On red and white chevron, pattern unending, a doll awaits severance. She valleys, she repeats in regular intervals her decorous patience. A figure is given lines like picks and ropes, made mountaineer to climb a red slope. The climber's thin collection of angles moves across her potential dollscape. Latency crimps. This is called chevron. This world, die and valley, valley, valley. No selvage edge, no fray, no cliff, no table's edge, below which scraps, without edge or end, without variation, and yet wrinkle in the fabric, crisscross of threads, independent of the stripe. The weave has its own order, the dye does not penetrate. At a precise point in the depth of the weave, V's cease, the weave reticulates. This one is called Apollo Imagines the Edge of a Field. Pines lit with fire blight, needles burn in absent blaze. The pear's steep trunk shears and falls. Viburnum tracks a hawk. Blackberry roots travel the clay. A season of blossoms drops from every fruit. Sugars form. The moon pales and waits for me to shred the night. Apollo in orbit remembers the earth. The rocky shore grows blue. Moraine leans to the still river. Cirrocumulus chain a steep Brazil of flocks. Twill torn, unlocked and roaring. Hollyhocks, spores blowing through the frame. This poem is called Neil Armstrong, and it is made up of a bunch of sort of haiku-sized pieces, and the first line of each of those pieces rhymes syllabically with the syllables of Neil Armstrong. So, Neil Armstrong.
Field farm strong, like from driving fence posts, like from trenching to divert the sluice. Steel charms long for a clasp, praying tethers for the chain. Mealworms elongate under moonlight. The alarm's on. Trust me, you want it when I'm gone. You want precaution. Keel harms, long gash on the hull of the craft. Peal our song, toll, clang, howl, and knell. Kneel, arms wrong, impossible to cross. The suit bulks and shines and mediates. Steal far beyond the dead volcanoes and lava flows, the tranquil sea, the marsh of sleep. Wheel mar dawn's long shadows, put your teal garment on. Let's walk around, make this goddess a surface. For those who doubt, for those who believe. Oh, inconstant sound stage in the sky. Oh, surface of shadows with one frayed edge. Receiver of light and men above the field. Owls hunt in the night and sounds their calls. Oh, broadcast, oh, threat. Let the field rats take cover. Let the voles and rabbits breathe in the shadow of the barn. Hunted at night and hiding, hearts beat in brambles grown thick and safe. Blackberry fermenting on the vine holds the smell of sun. O field light, erode the bordering sky. How the plateau formed. Started dark and quiet, cool, a field like the rest. Jagged grasses, land flat as a tender sky. Found in the sky a lofted model, and in its own grubby collections of worms and roots. No recognition, no affection. Waved seed heads, sought birds, wanted the sky's touch, and stretched, sheared the faces. Pastoral. I was unincorporated. I was without a body. I was lots, not lots yet, parcels. I was ground where the pipes will go. I was shrubs. I was brush, and the space between shacks. I lacked governance. I was lean-tos. I was dens in the earth and roots of the wheat swept on. I was pear and turtle sunning. I was lungs on breathing. I was the sight on the horse's neck where bats came nightly to feed. I was the blood coagulating into morning. I was waiting for full dark again. I was waiting for the wound to reopen. I was led to a tree, a weak tree strung with nets. I was the bat, hoping to be caught. I couldn't heal myself fast enough. History. Volcano bled fire and covered the moors. Terrain like a sheet wrinkled. In the desert, an airplane to hiss. Jeans paired and shivered in vain artifice. Scree filled the bedrock floor. Detritus, our ingenue. The land was innocent. War sizes ran small. We kept the kills quiet amid rows of pale clover, sugarcane, and millet. Under the fields. In the absence of desire, the objects of desire toil and weep, perform our contrition. We tread like echoes. We are armies of apology, carved into the earth, tunnels like foxes. Orange fur in the stubbled field glows bright as an error. Tufts the warren in darkness, our Lord and our container. There comes the summer. The pond turns over. Catfish, fat as a thigh, float whitely, trailing their whiskers. Algae blooms red under the pollen film, fills a layer and climbs. Fish confined above the harsh sulfur and methane of the thermocline. No aeration's poverty by the heart, thudding in deep sediment. Brief, heavy thunderstorm in summer is enough to stratify and strip the water's oxygen, bring harsh gases to the flush of sky that grazes ponds and fishes' undersides. Okay, I'm gonna read 2 more. Weren't we here before when it was warm? Weren't there tendrils, new shoots? Didn't someone shoot? It was deer season with hay bale deep in the woods above the creek, a target. Rifles sounding from the fields out back. A spotted fawn, small as a cat, shot by children practicing. Couldn't I have held it in my arms? Wasn't there a new bow tied in double knots that came undone? Wasn't there a double bourbon and pushing the button on the dishwasher hundreds of times? When it was warm, wasn't the creek a path? The hayfield inhaling cold breath. Vegetation blocked our sight lines. Didn't the tall, straight oak fall over the creek and become long and become a bridge, a dead bridge, and bring the earth up with it? This last poem is called Sky. To accommodate migration, the sky rips a series of bird-shaped holes in its cloth. To accommodate the lawn, it rips its lower edge to fringe. The sky is a loose net, 1,000 mouths hinging at each wing beat. Its eyes like the gray inside a museum, the color of a docent's shadow on the wall. If the bird moves out of sync with the sky's eyes blinking, one may enter the open shard, the brand new room of bird-filtered light. Thanks.
I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Maggie Graber. Maggie Graber is a queer poet from the Midwest, the author of Swan Hammer, winner of the 2021 Wheelbarrow Books Poetry Prize, and a 2023 nominee for the Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters Award. Her poems have been published or are forthcoming in the Journal, South Dakota Review, Rhino, Legal Review, and Ginsburg. Illuminart's Cultural Foundation Photo, and former certified wilderness first responder. Maggie currently lives in Oxford, Mississippi, where she just defended her doctoral dissertation.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I just defended my dissertation the other day, and I just celebrated last night. So we are here, and I'm going to read some poems. And by the grace of God, we will get through this. What a pleasure to be in New Orleans. Macho. This first poem is called Poem for My Downstairs Neighbor. My third day in the building, you hobbled up the fire escape to tell me. Dad just dead of a heart attack. Friend murdered over drugs. Your busted knee. Basil grew in a blue tub. A baby's bath by the bike rack. You said take as much as I wanted, all my hands could carry. But the two capsized boats of your eyes warned to keep my distance. Months later, when I re-signed the lease, the landlady's son slipping his mother would not rent out to you again. Fights with your girlfriend, bounced rent checks. I wasn't sad, but I wonder where you will go. If a river exists in this town, if any hands could heal you. Just this morning, you opened your door to the damp smell of earth after thunder, the volume dial of your radio all the way to the end. Blasting a song by Sonny and Cher, I imagine reminds you of shag carpet, or what it feels like to be in love. I wrote on the balcony above you a poem on the speed of light, how it travels like a thought through space, how even the illumination, which makes visible the universe, stems from somewhere else. Stars juiced on nuclear fusion, electrical lines flowing from power plants, a beaded line of luminous orbs strung to a glowworm on the ceiling of the darkest cave in New Zealand. Like particular species near the ocean's floor, the glowworm knows it must create its own light to attract insects. The insects have not figured out the light they love will be used against them. And can you blame them? Every day, the sun tricks us into thinking light shows us the truth. But last night before the thunderstorm, a squirrel dug up an acorn it buried months ago. Hands scooping the dirt, it scampered up an oak tree where I no longer could see it. When the storm finally showed up, I opened all my windows to capture it on film. Lightning crooked between clouds, but I could never predict when it was about to strike. Atmosphere just right. Electricity in the sky, once believed to be a god. I don't know if you were home to witness that storm, or if you know where the pine-flavored breeze will carry you in the approaching months. But for several years, I have wanted a fish tank. Quiet sound of bubbles, small shipwreck or Buddha statue on a bed of sand-colored stones. When you leave, I will buy one, along with a few fish. I will change their water when it needs to be changed. I will scrub the tank's glass walls until we see each other clearly. Fish eye to my eye. And in this act of nurturing, I will try to learn how we care for other lives. This mutual biology. How nature helps us remember the world as it was when the continents were united, when the clouds held the kingdom of Zeus. Tomato prayer. Morning of work, morning of wood in the stove, coffee grounds like the dark soil of Iowa. I have come to this farm kitchen to live beside the bowls of peppers and potatoes, corn plucked from the rows, boards and knives that slice the earth-made flesh. And here I apologize, wanderer that I am, to take another trail and tell you I don't like the word flesh. How I imagine a cantaloupe crescent tilled from an arm or thigh. And if I have run away, let it be so I can dig in the dirt to plant myself. Fist of flowers unfurl on my forehead, watered with the nightmares of deer. A bowl of tomatoes burns like a bonfire, and though I didn't plant it, maybe this is a prayer to a God I've never spoken with, but has watched me each night. The trance of moonlit clouds calls me like a mouse to a trap. If this is death, Let wakefulness grant me another name, a sound I could hide under my tongue like the black and yellow suits of bees. Friend, how will you know me when all I am is wet dirt underneath your feet? How will we love when all we've buried grows on vines and tastes unsalted like weakening sun? Does anyone remember when the world was going to end in 2012? Yeah. It did end for me. So this is day one, December 22nd, 2012. I was there when the Mayan apocalypse began in the dining room of an Italian restaurant. Bing Crosby crooning "I'll Be Home for Christmas" through the speakers, and me watching my mother amid the smells of pesto and marinara remember her father dead 2.5 years. While families in Indiana and around the Midwest counted down to midnight when they finally would meet God, I stood to hug her, whispered, "I love you," as if a voice could glue back together the bits of bleak Irish porcelain buried in the graveyard of a heart. After dinner, my brother dancing in the parking lot, snow falling like bleached confetti. I drove the 10 minutes down Campbell Street in silence to an old friend's solstice party. Ate carrot sticks and pretzels under palm trees in her Margaritaville basement. And when everyone left, we kneeled on the floor, offering dead birds, 2 fistfuls of feathers to winter ritual. In college, an ex-boyfriend strangled her. Nails in her neck, stage curtain beginning to fall. Her father flashed in her mind and she punched the guy in the jaw. In college, I once fell in love with a boy and a girl at the same time, though it would take 6 years to collapse the scaffolding rusting around my heart so I could tell a truth so plain. Next morning at the kitchen table, sunlight spilling through the window, I didn't tell my mother the text message I had just received containing a little heart was from a girl I could not stop thinking about. Instead, I watched her nurse a headache, navigate a Sudoku puzzle. When she finished, I held it to the light like I was deciphering code. 73165824996921345878542971336. Months later, I'd hinge open the rusted mouth of a mailbox, let the postal service deliver what I could not say aloud. When Grandpa Murphy fought in the war, she said, he cracked codes for the Allies. At war's end, with Europe avalanched in concrete, there is nothing else to do but build it once again. I'm gonna do a couple more. One of the things about my book, Swan Hammer, is that it's also an instructor's guide to mirrors. And so there's a lot of poems that are kind of addressing people, whether I know them or not. And this poem is for my friend Pleaides, who lives in New Orleans now, and I celebrated with her last night for my dissertation, so it feels appropriate to read this. Roller derby night in Southern Illinois. I wish you could have seen the oval track that girls skated around like a cluster of orbiting planets. All of them in knee pads and helmets plastered with stickers. All of us eating hot dogs, cheering for the sun-colored team. And the little girl no older than 4 who towed the out-of-bounds line during introductions like she was standing at a shoreline, holding out her hand for high fives for the girls ducking close to the ground as they approached her. and how she'd turn, feet springing off the floor to look back at her grandma laughing. The wrinkles in her face you would have thought beautiful beneath the umbrella voice of the announcer as the referee with the full sleeve tattoo of a skeleton traced figure eights with his skates like an ad for infinity. And I wish you could have seen the girls not afraid to wear fishnets and compete. The girls not afraid to get knocked down in rainbow-colored zebra-striped spandex. The girls not afraid to get bruised and banged up, turn blue and black if it means there's a place for what's real, what's hard, and what's gorgeous. I wish you could have seen the disco ball on the back of a girl's black shorts and how she tackled one of the misfits off the track. Green mouthguard glowing plutonium on her tongue. And I wish on the way home, you could have seen the Big Dipper above Crab Orchard Lake, nailed to the dark wall of space, the moon spinning slow, flashing on the water like aluminum foil, like an instructor's guide to mirrors. This is my last poem. It's called Swan Hammer. Before I fall asleep, the girl who lives inside me dangles like a bat in a cave. When she speaks, her voice a conveyor belt, lobster claw tongue. Before sleep, the girl inside me hammers the wall of my skull. Light rides in on a wave of flat paper swans. She folds one. She folds another. She's trying to tell me she knows the way out. Thank you. And I have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce an incredible poet, C.T. Salazar. C.T. Salazar is a librarian and poet from Mississippi. He's the author of Headless John the Baptist Hitchhiking from Acre Books, published 2022, named a 2023 finalist for the Theodore Roethke Memorial Award. Everyone, C.T. Salazar.
Okay, so this first one, the title of this poem is a fragment of Sappho as translated by Anderson. So it's called As Long as You Want. The river is high, or the world is sinking. Either way, we have permission to be too much. I threw out your almanac. It said if you see blood and none of it is yours, trust there is still bleeding to come. I keep imagining God as having the brass claw feet on my mother's tongue. Imagine a country where you and I kiss before we burn our battlefield eggs. I was told to bury my dead, but it's the shovel that's underground now. It was an accident, I swear. Follow me if you can. To understand my father's mind, I wrapped my mother in Christmas lights, and then fell in love with the way she shimmered. Follow me deep enough into this cave. When our oxygen runs thin, we'll confuse the glowworms for teeny yellow moons. This one's called Mostly I'd Like to Be a Spiderweb. Because in the rain, it looked like a cracked window another church to belong to. You could look through me and see the world in front of us. One time, my ex-lovers made road tongues for me. I took my shoes off to feel the song a little better and cut it short each step. I want to tell you how many churches I've built to praise little things that deserve more than their few seconds of existence. Like the time I opened my door, smelled hibiscus, knew you were home. Like the time a child told me there was a God, and because he was smiling, I believed him. Mostly I'd like to be a spiderweb to feel you walk through, to see if you'll take me with you, despite the spider I bring. I'm gonna read a few new ones. We'll see how it goes. This is from a series called Four Snakes Makes Our Flag. Said Swallowtail and we butterfly. Said there's nothing to fight for and all the guns broke. Said Smoke. Motor finally broke down. Needed plural for river. Needed ribbon. You look just like your mother in the evening lit sauna. In the beginning, the Volkswagen was a blood rust splotch, a smear in the river, a heart half buried. And in the beginning was a barn full of horses kicking it down. Said barn, and the birds had somewhere to throw their shadows. Said beauty and our mothers smoked like movie stars, our daddies whiskey darkened, bruise giving. In the beginning, a man said, I love you, but the river didn't know how to take that. By the time they found him, he was something else. Four snakes mix our flag. The stars aren't distant little teapots full of light. Even so, I'm busy being dazzled. It's like being in a cobweb and you call me to say something so ridiculous and sweet. And the road turns to dirt, the rain glittering like snakeskin. I will make whatever I have to beautiful, even the green army helmet my mother used to carry creek water. You know the story. You know the story. My beautiful mother used to carry me like creek water in a green army helmet. When making the barn green in and out, larks with ribbons of snakeskin fluttering in air. In the wet dirt, arrowheads are glittering. We are in between so many stars, and please call me when there's nothing left to make beautiful. I think I'll just do like two more. Four snakes makes our flag. You're still here. Opal in the creek, begging by and by. I reach across to almost touch you. Here's history, but bear with me, it's bloody. God said, be light, and the crocus, the honeysuckle, the calla lily. We used our hands for the worst of it. We fell into a pile of brown leaves that was mostly moss and collected rainwater in copper bottom pots. This isn't the history I mentioned. This is rain washing into the radio, a voice hitting static like birds flying into laundry. I put my ear to your chest, clouds like rams. You undo the evening with your hands alone. You don't have to apologize, and light wept down. I know even if you stayed, a lonely pink sky would wound us so. Four snakes makes our flag. And the stars wept milkweed, and in the headlights, your daddy's dog tags, and it's okay to kiss him goodbye. And all the brass in your pockets, and Corinthians can be a flower so long as the garden beetles turn all gospels back to carbon, and a swan landing so softly the water doesn't seem to move, and I'm terrified of digging up Confederates, so the dog is shallowly buried. And July was the first time he told me he was losing his memory. And from the meadow, he lifted a whale's vertebra 3 years ago. And I don't know if you've ever felt something that old. And beneath all this wind, I have been putting my ear to the dirt and listening to us forget ourselves. Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming. I also just wanted to let everyone know that both Maggie and I have books to sell, so if you're interested in buying a book, come and find us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.